Omer, Davidi, BeeHero, welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me.
Of course, I love the poster behind you.
Yeah, we're trying to comply with the innovative approach of Upwest.
I love it. Okay, so you're saving bees around the world. You took me on a field trip to see an acre of land. I
How
don't know if
was
you.
it? How was it?
Oh my God, it was literally one of the most fun days I've had in years, and I'm scared shitless of bees. I mean, I see a bee. I was just walking Benny outside, and I saw a bee, and I ran with him to the other side. I even thought of leaving him there, so the bee gets occupied with him and not with me.
I think now with this Corona thing, even people that are afraid from bees would prefer to go and inspect some hives instead of staying at home. So you got a chance to do it before this lockdown.
It's yeah.
But yeah, it's quite exciting. I must agree.
No, no, no. I mean, just getting there and just to pin the picture, for whoever doesn't know BeeHero, you get to a field and you see a big crate, a big wooden crate, and you know that inside there's like what, 1,000 bees? How many bees are in one?
Tens of
500?
thousands, yeah, approximately 40,000 bees in one box.
40,000 bees in a hive?
Yeah, you've
Good
seen how
thing.
crowded it is.
Okay, good thing you didn't tell me that before because I wouldn't have gone on the field trip. And then you open the lid and you realize that there's this white plastic sensor that collects all these parameters on the bees so you can sense the health status of the bees and the quality of pollination. And then you realize that you actually have a high tech beehive. And that is both optimizing for the farmers, but it's also saving bees. So tell me a little bit about what is this high tech beehive and how is it actually helping farmers and bees?
Yes, so I think every time we talk about bees, the first things that comes to mind is the honey.
Yeah.
We most of us like honey, and this is one of the things that bees produce. But what most of us doesn't know is that, I mean, you've mentioned the farmer, and this is something I didn't know at the beginning, is that those bees are actually being used to pollinate 70% of everything we eat. Um, and I know Corona is a bit new for us, but the bees has been facing something similar for the last 10 years, what led the mortality rates among bee colonies to become over 40%. And those mortality rates affect the bee population, like the wild bee population, but
What does
also
that mean? 40% bee mortality.
that if you are a beekeeper and you grow bees in those little boxes that you sometimes see in the fields, half of those boxes will die. It means that the queen in those hives will die. The bees will not have a reason to live. Without the queen, they will not have a new generation to replace them once they die. And in a very short period of time, the colony just collapses. And now you have an empty box that you will have to spend a lot of resources to revive entering the next season or the next year.
And you've just lost pollination from that box for your current season, right?
Yeah, and we're talking about millions of flowers. So evolution worked together on the flowers and on the bees or insects overall to make them very efficient. A single bee colony can pollinate millions of flowers a day. And if you lose this hive during the pollination season, during the blooming season, you just lost the ability to pollinate those millions of flowers that will not turn out to be food.
Okay, so now that you're explaining this, it's obvious why it's a huge problem and also huge financial potential for whoever manages to salvage these 40% of beehives. Why are people not doing this? Why isn't there so much crazy competition? Why isn't Google and Facebook going and trying to solve this as well if it's such a big opportunity?
I guess they have their own problems to deal with first, but I think it involves with a lot of domain expertise in this field and a lot of work. I mean, dealing with biological superorganisms in hive involves the collection of a lot of data. We are focusing on two aspects of this problem. One is how can we decrease bee mortality and improve the quality of the hive? I mean, how can we provide beekeepers with better tools to maintain stronger colonies that pollinate
Right.
better? And the second one is how to actually optimize the process of pollination. Can we maximize the amount of flowers that every hive is visiting? And 2.5, 3 years ago, there was nothing done in this field. Not a lot of data, very sophisticated experiments on small amount of hives. And what we've decided to do from day one is just to collect massive amount of information. And we've been doing this for the last 2.5 years, having tens of thousands of hives, uploading data several times a day. And this is where we got the opportunity to actually do something. We started to see some companies entering this market. There's some very interesting opportunities there. And competition is a good thing. Maybe not competing against Google, but competition is a good thing.
No, you do have the largest data set on bees in the world, right? And you keep growing and increasing. And I think it's genius that first thing out of the box you realize that this is a data game. And at the end, even if you don't have all the features ready and all the products ready, and you don't have thousands of customers, even just getting yourself out there and being able to collect this data for your own learning, I think that's incredible. And but you're not coming from this space, and you're saying the domain expertise is critical, and you have a fascinating co-founder who's helping you with that, right?
So I'm actually coming from the tech side of things, dealt a lot with cybersecurity. So I do have experience in analyzing data and looking for patterns, but less on the beekeeping side.
Yeah.
One of my co-founders is Itai. He's a second generation commercial beekeeper. His family owns the largest bee farm in Israel. And he was the one to guide me through this thing. It's quite exciting, as you saw as a tech person yourself. Opening a hive is something that you don't get to see every day. And I think that the passion around it and the same questions that we've raised about, how humanity is going to handle the bee mortality situation and so on, led us to investigate it a little bit further. And this is how it all started.
No, I know when I was working on BeeHero for one of my projects at Stanford, one of the things that came apparent, one of the competitors, they had this technology also that is able to send stuff within a beehive, but when in an experiment, while it registered that the beehive is healthy, you actually open the box and it's dead. And I know, but when you're saying these things, it really resonates on this dissonance between what a tech person codes and what happens in real life. And it's one thing to go and think and sit behind a computer and analyze these parameters and sensors. It's another thing to go and physically open a box of 50,000 bees and see whether what you did makes sense. And having that domain expertise that Itai has, and it was just fascinating to learn how do you even spot the queen and how can you tell what's happening in there. And it was really, really great. So what happened before BeeHero? Talk to me a little bit about that.
What happened before BeeHero? First of all, we didn't know anything about the corona, so our life was a little bit more simple. But besides this, I've had the opportunity to work on 3 interesting projects, and I also work with the Israeli Cyber Center on some interesting projects as well. So I faced, selling companies in the past. I faced closing company, one in the past. So I think I've seen both sides of the coin, I would say. I think I'm always looking for fields where the technology that I feel comfortable with, and we're not talking about, space science or things that are like super deep tech that takes years of deployment and development, can be useful, to optimize. And, I've done it in the energy space, in aquaculture, in retail. And I think, seeing now the farming industry and the beekeeping industry as a new challenge is very fascinating. And we've managed to build a very good team that I'm very happy with.
How do you deal with this difference that you're a tech expert, Itai is a beekeeper expert, but do you find it difficult to communicate and set KPIs and milestones as a company because of that?
I think it becomes hard when Itai needs to be a lot of time in the office. He's more of a field type of guy. He
Yeah.
needs to be out there. Um, I think, and this is something that we're still facing. I mean, now we are more people, and we have, PhD in biology and electrical engineering and different kind of people to help and improve the algorithms. Um, I think there is a gap between the understanding of uh, an expert beekeepers, I would say, with technologies like machine learning. And on the developer side, they have a lot of experience in machine learning, but they know nothing about bees. So,
Yeah.
for example, when you see an outlier coming from the data, you don't have the knowledge in order to analyze it. And the main challenge that I see over there is I can call it miscommunication. I don't know if it's really a miscommunication, but some of the assumptions that the biologist or the beekeeper make handling the questions that on the table in terms of algorithms can affect the way we're going to progress. And I think simplicity is the answer. So we are trying to analyze everything in a very simple way, so the developers do not become an experts in biology, but they do understand what they need to in order to improve. And also on the biological side, you do need the context of what we're trying to do on the development side. Otherwise, if, even designing an experiment to classify a new problem
Yeah.
just might not work. So I do see some challenges in this. I think we're getting better and better. And yeah, it would be interesting to see how far can we go with it. We're exploring some additional things for future, like as a future vision we have. So it's quite fascinating.
Yeah, I already shared with you how excited I got when I learned about BeeHero, so much that I wanted to dive deeper at Stanford, and I already told you that one day I want to be a BeeHero myself, um, and I see this going
Would love
so
to have
far.
you.
I see this going really really far, and I think really you mentioned when I came on the field trip, you mentioned that you can't understand without being there. You can't sit in an office and think about bees and think about the farmers without actually being in the field and seeing what a beekeeper does and how easy it is for a beekeeper to lose a colony and to lose pollination, and you literally see thousands of trees around you and can imagine what happens if you can just optimize pollination a little bit more. And one of the things that excite me most about what you're doing is that you're actually changing the whole business model of the interaction between farmers and beekeepers, where farmers, instead of paying by beehive, they're paying per acre of pollination, which means for you that the more you optimize your mathematical models, the less hives you need to provide the same pollination. And this win-win situation, to me, that's very exciting because it's really pure win-win. You're not going at the expense of them. So what's happening now with Corona? Everybody's at home. A lot of industries are tanking. Is the agriculture field tanking?
So I think it's a little bit early to say. I mean, as long as we have enough people that needs food, we need to have farmers producing those ingredients
Right.
and food. So I don't think it will impact this industry the way it might impact other industries. I mean, if we're talking about travel industries and other areas, well, going to get most of the impact, I guess. I think that also when you look at the farming industry, um, like we handle this crisis by cutting everything that is not needed because we don't know how much runway we're going to need and when the market's going to be stabilized again and so on. Every other business is doing this as well. So, for example, if farmers would dedicate less money for innovation, I'm sure. I mean, we don't see it yet, but I'm sure it's going to happen. And I'm being able to meet face to face definitely affects the acquisition cycles that we
Yeah.
had. We need to find different ways to communicate.
Right.
So what we do now, we focus mostly on those customers we already have, trying to expand, working with them. And we'll have to figure out how it's gonna work. I think in the next 2-3 months, this crisis is gonna affect the most, and then at some point, people will have to find ways to continue working, just because the economy will not enable this to continue too much. So it definitely affects the market. I think I'm lucky, first of all, to be in this space,
Yeah.
which I think will not absorb most of the impact. And secondly, it's a question of runway. If I were to raise funds now, I think it would have been very complicated, very hard. Valuation will probably drop down, which makes it harder to get a lot of money, because you cannot dilute too much. It doesn't look good, for future rounds.
Of course.
So I think it's also luck that we've closed the round a couple of months ago, and we have enough runway to go through this thing. It doesn't mean that we don't do any cuts, but it just means that we're trying to understand where are we going with it. We're based in the US, which is our main market, which is good, I guess, for companies based in Israel. They do not have good enough position in the main market. Now it's becoming more challenging because the ability to fly dropped down significantly. So yeah, I think it's a crazy thing we are facing, and I'm pretty confident we can go over it.
Yeah, I was speaking to Shuli and Shuli Galili, one of the investors in BeeHero, and one of the things that she says about herself, she's an optimist, and she's looking at this time on how you can sit back and reflect also on what's happening and really assess the value that you're creating, and how can you spark innovation from this time. So I'm definitely trying to take it to heart and take also my own time to do these assessments. Omer, before we finish, and you have to go back to saving millions or billions of bees, I need 3 words about you that describe you.
3 words. That's challenging. You didn't prepare me for this.
That's the point. Everybody's gonna hate me after these interviews. I'm putting everybody on the spot. Maybe I should stop.
I would go with passionate.
Nice.
That's tough. Positive.
Yes.
Curious.
I love it. Passionate, positive, curious.
Yeah, I think that's the only reason to deal with entrepreneurship, because realistically it makes no sense. So I think, yeah, I didn't have enough time to think of it, but I think
I love them. No, and I love them, and I completely agree. So if Corona comes back next year, like many say they do, we're gonna do this again, and I want to see if your 3 words are the same.
Perfect, and we will be happy to have you before the next crisis.
That will be fantastic. Omer, thank you so much, and good luck with all the bees.
Thank you so much, and take care through this crazy time. Bye bye.
Bye.